And here's another thing. Do not think that those warlocks that are initiated, that they always go around like you see in Disney movies, wearing those wizard hats and with long black robes and chanting weird things in Latin. Now, there are times they chant weird things in Latin or in ancient Babylonian or those other ancient languages. That is when they are in their secret meetings consulting the demons. In daily life, they often wear suits, or if they are in an informal setting, they will wear jeans, or if they are amongst the youth, they will use their black magic to rejuvenate their skin so they may appear younger than they are, just to get a hold on the youth. You have trendy warlocks, you have serious warlocks, you have old-fashioned warlocks, you have conservative warlocks, liberal warlocks, Islamic warlocks, Jewish warlocks. You have warlocks everywhere. Okay? And what I said about them having secret meetings to consult demons, understand this. Warlocks are also fortune tellers. And another thing, for those warlocks to get in contact with the evil spirits, this is what they do. They take alcoholic drinks that contain way too much alcohol, and what they do is they come together in a meeting, often in around the table in a circle that is to worship the sun god Apollo, and they're chanting their black dark hymns onto the beast, and then they all take a shock quickly, a quick shock of that alcoholic drink, and suddenly that shot intoxicates them so quickly that they become drunk very quickly. But this drunkenness happens so swiftly that their brains are in shock, and in this shock, they're open to the paranormal and they can communicate with unclear spirits directly, just like they would communicate with another human being. And that's how they receive consultation from evil spirits. So those strong drinks, they call spirits, that are sold in bars or in clubs, they are designed by warlocks because warlocks use them. Now, to the public, they don't sell the real thing. They may sell vodka or some other, or Jack and Daniels or some softer version of what they drink in their rituals, but that's where it comes from. That's why this culture of being drinking is often found in fraternities and sororities because it comes from the warlock cabinets. That's what they do. When they have to make a decision about their jurisdiction, they go into their ceremonies, chanting their dark hymns, and they make sure they are intoxicated with those strong alcoholic drinks because it is in this intoxication that they receive counsel from the unclean spirits. So those warlocks often have alcoholic issues. That's one sign of them often. Another thing is that they have this mathematical calculating mindset, which refers onto the beast, because the beast is a mathematical psychopath. But the mathematical psychopath is what the ancient Greeks considered a real man. So even the manhood that they reflect is Apollonian or heliocentric. So understand that those warlock cabinets are the real deal and the real danger. I don't promote them by calling them the real deal as if they're so powerful. They are powerful. What I mean is, I'm not going to glorify them, but I do have to tell you, fact is a fact, they are the real danger. Don't look at TV and become frightened of ISIS or become frightened of Boko Haram or become frightened of the neo-Nazis and all of it. Who's the one running and maintaining those Apollonian institutions? The warlock cabinets are. And above them you have the wizards. You seldom see the wizards, but you will see the warlocks. And in pagan Christianity, you find many warlocks. We call them pastors, call them deacons, we call them bishops, apostles. They come as wolves in sheep's clothing to devour the believers and to make believers ineffective because there's only believers can defeat warlock cabinets. So that's why they invest so much in pagan Christianity. That's why they invest so much in faulty Bible translations. Isn't it weird that if you have if you go to a bookstore often, you go to the section of witchcraft. You have a witchcraft manual, and then you pick up an NIV Bible edition. And when you look at the print, or you look at the company that printed those books, that same company that printed that quote unquote modern Bible translation is the same corporation also prints that witchcraft manual. Something doesn't add up here. But too many believers don't pay attention. And I'm telling you to pay attention. For real. Now, am I telling you to be afraid of warlock cabinets? Absolutely not. Look, there are common warlocks, common male pagans out there that are against the shadow government. They are against warlock cabinets. But here's the problem. There is no such thing as good witchcraft. There is no such thing as good wizardry. There is no such thing as good black magic or white magic. It doesn't exist. So they will use Satan's resources to defeat Satan himself. It's not going to work. So that's why I'm telling you to pay attention to your surroundings. Not out of fear, absolutely not, but out of alertness. Christ wants you to be alert. If you work for an organization, just because you need a job to pay the rent and all of that, okay, that's it. Or if you're a nurse working for a hospital because you really want to help people, that's fine. If you're a medical professional and you're a doctor and you really want to help people, I admire that. But if the organization that you work for is just a cover or a front, don't seek to expose them while you're there. If you're there, know what's going on and hijack in a Christ-centered way what's going on there. You're there anyway. For you to leave and be without a job, and without an income and become homeless, that's not an option. For you to tolerate what's going on is not an option either. What is the option? Be wise as serpent. You're there, you have a little bit of influence, use it to hijack what's going on. Because those warlock cabinets, they can be overthrown, and in the past they were overthrown often. They just don't like to report that they've been overthrown. They want to pretend that they are invincible. They're not. Remember, those warlock cabinets, they infiltrate human communities, and they create organizations that appear good but do the opposite. And the wizards are the ones regulating it all on behalf of the beast. So, beware of warlocks, especially warlock cabinets. Always remain in prayer. There is another thing you need to realize about warlocks, and that is that they often get things done. 95% of the time they get things done. They are very effective. Why? Because they see things as they are. They do not hold on to popular myths like common people do. Especially when it comes to the opposite sex. Because don't be mistaken about it. Warlocks are quite literate when it comes to females. A warlock doesn't have to spend much time with a female to know what's going on with her. A warlock tends to be just as effective as an experienced psychologist. He only has to speak for a minute or two with a female, and he already knows what's going on with her. He can see her defects and her issues immediately. Warlocks are far more literate about women than women are literate about themselves. So, when it comes to the opposite sex, warlocks are more at ease. They don't have this urge to prove their sexuality like a lot of common men do. Why? Because they know what they're involved with. Now, when it comes to the warlocks are initiated, they do not trust females that easily, especially not common females. Warlocks are initiated, and overall, warlocks in general, they prefer witches to some extent, but even witches they aren't that fond of. Why? Because they know that females are designed to operate under male supervision, and witches tend to think that they don't need male supervision or that they can control the males around them, and that is what the warlocks are not fond of. Whether it is a warlock that is initiated or just a common warlock out there, they can't stand this controlling urge that witches have. Nevertheless, when it comes to daily interactions, they often prefer a witch over a common female. Why? Because they know that at least the witch has some restraint on her internally, while the common female in general has no restraint unless there's restraint from the community. And knowing how common people are, that common people tend to be narcissistic, that common people tend to be in denial, especially in denial of their pathological urge for relief, this makes it quite risky for a warlock to be involved with a common female. Because they know once the female plays the victim, people will defend her often at all costs, and the warlock's in trouble. So that's why warlocks tend to prefer witches in their daily interactions to some extent, because they can't even stand the controlling urge that pagan women tend to have. Especially the delusion that a lot of witches have that they can operate without male supervision. Okay, I wanted to point that out. Understand also that warlocks, they want to be ahead of everything. And this is a practical attitude of theirs. And it's this practical attitude of theirs that makes them successful. Yes, they have paranormal aid that comes from the demons. Of course they have that because they're warlocks. But the reason why they are often successful and why they're often not the target of contention is because they look around them. Or as I always say, they look at the bigger picture. For example, common people have this pathological urge for relief. They want control. So common people don't want you to tell them what to do. They want to will for free, will whatever they will, without having to account for their will. And warlocks know this about common people, but they used to be common people also. And they see how dangerous this can be. They see that common folks have the potential to do good and great things. They acknowledge that. But they also see that once it goes wrong with common people, it goes terribly wrong. So warlocks, they don't trust the will of common people. Because they know once there's frustration, those common folks want the dumb stuff, and then they will look for a victim, and all that violence will emerge. Warlocks don't mind their own business. They don't. Because they know very well that if you only bother with yourself and you don't pay any attention to your surroundings, that makes you very vulnerable, and that's very dangerous in this world. In this world, it's very important for you to be alert. Okay, let me give a brief example to you. Let's say now that you have a high school. At the high school, there's this prom. And the teenagers are excited for the prom, especially the girls. After the prom, 2 girls go missing. And when the police comes, they investigate what happened that night. One of the police officers is a warlock. Nobody knows it, but he's a warlock. And as a warlock, he looks very differently at the case than his colleagues. His colleagues look at the facts, at what happened. He looks at the context. And when he looks at the context, he recognizes that one of the pupils at that high school is a warlock himself. Warlocks recognize one another very quickly. And so the police officer approached this warlock, who is 15 years old, and asked him, dude, I know what you're involved in. I'm in it too. I've been in it since I was 14. So tell me what's going on here. And the young warlock tells the older warlock, the police officer, sir, there was a lot of contention in this school. There was a lot of jealousy and envy going on here. There was a lot of accusation. I did not attend the prom because I sensed and I saw already that someone's going to get hurt. I have a girlfriend I'm involved with, and I told her we're not going to the prom. Even though she was very upset about it, she listened eventually. And what did I found out, sir? That she was one of the girls that other girls were murmuring about often. So she was a target also. I figured that out later, but I sensed already don't go to that party. And then the police officer was also warlock, discussed the case further with that younger warlock, and they both found out that it were 3 teenage boys, teenage guys that were behind the kidnappings and killings. And those 3 teenage boys, or the teenagers, they did it to get approval from their significant others. Their significant others were so upset with certain girls, so they thought we're going to make our significant others happy by getting rid of those girls. Now, those teenage women that were complaining all the time about those other women, they were generating negative energy, were generating a negative climate. And that negative climate would escalate sooner or later. And they did this on purpose. Now, they're not witches, but they did this on purpose. And the guys that fenced them were motivated to act out in a violent manner. Now, this guy of 15 years old, this warlock, he knew what was going on, and he saw it. He didn't know exactly how it would work out, but he knew this is going wrong soon, and he was ahead of it. That's how warlocks are. Warlocks want to be ahead of stuff. They don't just go through their daily lives not paying attention to their surroundings. This whole idea of minding your own business, it's BS. You're part of a community, should be alert about what's going on in the community so that you can be ahead of troubles. Look, warlocks, they tend to have things easy from time to time because they pay attention. For example, when a warlock gets a job, or when a warlock is about to open his own business, or when a warlock is about to go somewhere, maybe for a holiday, he does his ceremonies at home. He conjures up demonic powers and he does what he has to do, so that when he's on his way, he's covered. And because he is covered, he does not become the target of contention. When people are dissatisfied, they think twice. Not twice, they think twice before dumping the negative energy on the warlock. Because the warlock is covered. And because he's covered, there are dangerous consequences haunting those that target them. You get what I'm saying here? Warlocks, they do not hold on to this forgive and forget BS. They know you have to forgive because else you will be endangered by toxic energy, but they also realize you need to be alert with people. Warlocks, when it comes to being effective, they are often far more reliable than many believers. And I'm not saying this with joy, because this is an embarrassing thing, but at this moment of this recording, that's how it is. Too many believers hold on to church. They hold on to church teachings. They hold on to Christian doctrines. They hold on to a lot of traditions that have nothing to do with Christ. They seek their security in something Christ is not involved in. Warlocks, at the other hand, they do not seek validation from common people. Warlocks do seek validation, don't get me wrong, because they are still worldly, though They're not worldly like other world people are, but they don't seek validation from common people. So they don't fall for this BS that you need to be respectful and all of that. Warlocks use terms like privacy, respect, all of that just to please the ears of common people. They don't actually believe in those things because they know you need to be alert. Look, warlocks, when they are involved in something, they look at the context and they look at what the potential retaliation will be. Let's say your name is John and you are about to purchase a house. The first thing a warlock would ask is, John, have you checked the spiritual condition of that house? That's the first thing warlock would ask you. The warlock's not going to talk about the finances because he knows that you have arranged your finances. He's not going to talk about your job and all that. He's going to talk about the spiritual condition of the house. The warlock's going to ask you, did you check the history of that house? No. And then the warlock asks you, how many people owned the house before you? Just two. And how old is the house? 45 years. When did the last owner leave? The warlock asks you. You say 20 years ago. And then the warlock thinks, hold on a minute, John. So for 20 years nobody lived in that house. The real estate office kept renovating the house. Nobody wanted it. Why didn't anyone want the house for 20 years, for 2 decades? John, something's not right with that place. That's how a warlock would do it. How do Babylon churches do it? How do pagan Christians do it? They think, oh, John, you're about to purchase a house. Praise the Lord. Praise God. The Lord is good. And prosperity preachers would use that example. You see, if you pay your tithes and come to church every Sunday, the Lord is going to bless you. Or they may send people to bless the house and all of that. They don't tell you to look at the bigger picture and to examine things. Warlocks do not just get involved in stuff. Warlocks check the context. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that warlocks in general are good people. There are warlocks who have a good kind at heart. They want to do good stuff, but they use demonic aid in it, so they are trapped. As mentioned before, many warlocks are part of warlock cabinets, so they are part of the dark side willingly. Okay, but even when they are part of the dark side willingly, doesn't mean that they go out all day long doing evil. No, they're involved in the dark side, so they're used by evil spirits, but it doesn't mean that they do evil all the time, because they know when you operate in the negative, it will have consequences on you. They're far more realistic than common evildoers, because common evildoers get upset and you just want to dump and be left alone. Warlocks are more practical. Warlocks know that if you involve yourself in negativity, it will haunt you. So the warlocks that are involved in the warlock cabinets, they are involved in evil, but they balance it out by also doing good stuff. That's how they hinder the negative energy from destroying them. Look, when it comes to warlocks, understand also that these people, these men I have to say, because they're all men, there are no such thing as female warlocks. Females involved in occult or witches and witchcraft is different than black magic. Okay? Seldom will a female get involved in black magic. Black magic is a male thing. Males manage it far better. Males manage it the best. Warlocks, I'm saying like this, they are far more realistic. That's why they're so successful. Let me give an example to you. And I need to repeat this because this needs to get through to you. It needs to get through to you what you're dealing with. These men, let's say that you are without a job at the moment, and you know you need to pay bills, so you need currency. How do you get currency? You get it either from the bank or from other people. If you take away currency just like that, you're called a thief and you'll be arrested. So you are conditioned that you need to find a job or do something to beg for currency. And you think it's just the way it is. You need to work for it. You need to do that. What does a warlock do? A warlock goes into his house, into his wardrobe. He does what he has to do, and he begins to decree consequences on the environment on his behalf. So when the warlock arrives at the bank works with him. He wants a loan of 20,000 euros. The bank is very smooth in granting him the 20,000 euros without even asking too much questions. Oh, he wants to work somewhere. He gets a job quickly. Of course, he checks whether it's worth it to work there. Or he wants to purchase a house. He does his rituals and he gets a house, often without even being qualified for the house. That's how the warlock does it. The warlock doesn't follow the ticking patterns of working hard, earning it, and all those validation-seeking behaviors that common people holding on to. And now just think about these believers, because I'm talking to believers now. Those warlocks are very practical. They're quite alert. Believers ought to be far, far superior to the warlocks. Unfortunately, now we have believers going to warlocks for assistance, even though the believers have the Holy Spirit. The believers have the power, but because they're not operating in the power, they now seek relief from warlocks. And many of those warlocks run churches. That's a very perverse situation. Look, when you're dealing with a warlock, you're dealing with a highly intelligent being. But you're dealing with an intelligent being that doesn't operate in a Christ-centered way. Whether he's inaugurated or not doesn't matter. You're dealing with a man that's very intelligent, but there's one error with him. He does not rely on Christ. He relies on himself. And this self-reliance is the big error that grants Satan a hold over him. Because warlocks are making they're committing the same error Satan did. Satan, I'm not going to go too much into this guy. This man, because the heavens are populated by males only, this man, a four-winged creature, he was a light being. He could generate music out of his wings and out of his hands. Without instruments, he could sing as a choir without having a choir. When he flew around, it was like there was a party arrives. I mean, this guy had riches, wealth, wisdom. He was a teacher also. He had servants. He had sanctuaries. So he had what you can say mansions, temples, all of that. He had his own throne. This guy had everything. He was the heavenly man in which the Most High invested the most. His error was he began to think that he can operate on his own account without relying on Christ. And this corrupted him, and because he continued in that corruption, he turned into Satan. And many other princes of heaven followed him, and 1/3 of heaven's population also followed his error. Those are the fallen angels, by the way. When it comes to warlocks, they are committing the same error, self-reliance. Even though warlocks can see that self-reliance is a hoax, because they don't have Christ, they still rely on themselves, but they don't really see it as self-reliance because they use paranormal aid. Don't get me wrong, I'm not praising warlocks in this video. I'm just pointing out how they operate. You have warlocks that you can consider them good guys because they don't want to do any harm, but they're still dangerous because using demonic aid. And then you have warlocks who are fully involved in devil worship. But where is a warlock that's deceived or a warlock that's fully involved in the dark side, they're dangerous because they are operating in self-reliance. And this self-reliance is dangerous both for themselves and for those that they are involved with. In the third part, I'm going to talk about how believers can exceed the knowledge of warlocks. That is what ought to happen. That's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ.